Okay, Dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 1 of a 3-part video series to review almost all the heroes in the game. In this first part, I will review the better rare heroes. After the review, we will rank and also talk about your wishlist priorities. The wishlist, for those who don't know, is a special banner where you can choose which heroes you want a higher rate for. New heroes are added every 2 weeks after their banner has ended, and I think this is one of the best things about the game. There are a total of 34 rare heroes in the game, but I will cover only 20 in this video. This is a grading scale for their usefulness in the various modes. So let's begin with our top 2 rare heroes, with the first being Evan. So Evan has been an amazing unit that has lasted all the way till now over the past 4 months. And he excels in your adventure, your nightmare adventure, not so great in farming. And as a new player, you'll probably use him a lot because of his passive. He gives your entire team defense boost, and he also has a very powerful shield that gives your entire team a shield basically. But it also increases your entire team's block rate. So he also gives stun immunity, which makes him very valuable in the Destroyer Gaze raid. And coupled with Yuri, which we'll talk about later, they form one of the strongest early game duo. Okay, not just in Destroyer Gaze, but because Evan is so universally good, you can also use him in Ox King, and some people also use him in Iron Devourer as the 5th unit. And Castle Rush as well, especially in the early period, where his shield can actually help to mitigate a lot of damage and you can sustain your entire team. And not just that, even in Infinite Tower and Tower of Trials, he is still used to this date simply because of his stun immunity and also because of his shield. So this is definitely a very good hero to invest in very early on. And next up, of course, we have Yuri. She is the very good early game healer who not only has healing capabilities but also provides a revive for your team. And not only that, she is able to reduce the magic attack of the enemy, provide burn immunity, and really she is also widely used alongside Evan very early on because you need a healer, and I think she's one of the best ones, especially for her revive. Okay, and she also provides continuous healing, which is not something that other rare healers can do. So if you'd like to pair her with another proper healer, because actually her healing skill doesn't heal your entire team from the immediate effect. Okay, there's no immediate healing, but it takes time. So if you would like, you can pair her with other units, other healers like Karon and Lucy, who actually do heal. But nonetheless, because she has burn immunity, she's also used up to this date, especially in Castle Rush, power-up dungeons, where they're all enemies and bosses that burn. And there were many times where I felt that her magic attack reduction is actually very useful because she also keeps your entire team more tanky against magic dealing enemies. And with that, Evan and Yuri form the 2 must-have units for your Destroyer Gaze raid, which I will showcase in a separate video later on this week. So the next 2 units will be for your Ox King raid, and that is Black Rose and Karon. Now Black Rose is currently being outclassed by Daisy, who I'll talk about tomorrow in the Legendary Hero video. But if you can't get Daisy early on, because I'm not sure how Global will bring forth the event, but Daisy was actually a free unit in Korea server, so that completely made Black Rose useless in a way. But if you guys are not getting Daisy from the start, then Black Rose is a unit that you definitely need to invest in because she has Petrify immunity and her AoE skill is definitely a need for the Ox King raid. But beyond that, she's not really used anywhere except for early game, adventure and early game PvP, and that's about it. The next hero is Karon. He provides bleed immunity and has both skills that heal. So he is also very important, and I do see him being used even until now in Nightmare Adventure, and because he has 2 healing skills, he tends to be a go-to unit for difficult content where you need a lot of healing. And of course, till now he's still used in the Ox King raid because of his bleed immunity, but beyond that he's not really used anywhere else besides Adventure and sometimes Tower of Trials. Next up we have Asura. She is also being outclassed right now, but again, if you are not going to be able to get this better unit called Biscuit, then I think Asura is definitely still a must build for your early game Iron Devourer raid. However, she's not just used in Iron Devourer raid, she can also be used in Tower of Trials and also Castle Rush at times. Okay, especially if the bosses get a little tricky and you have to place a taunt on them, Asura is the best unit to do that. Okay, because it's quite unique to her. She also has defense reduction, and she also can cast a shield, ensuring that your team does survive better. She's one of those units where you never really know if you need her, but she has that very unique skill waiting to be used. So I think it's still worth the investment. After all, she's just a rare unit, so you can just pick her along the way. Then we have Lucy. She's still used in Iron Devourer after 4 months. She is a poison immunity provider. She also has debuff removal, which is very unique because there are not many rare heroes that actually can remove debuff. We'll talk about one later on as well. She also heals, and she also, similar to Yuri, able to reduce the physical attack of the enemy with her basic attack. So this is also pretty important for the purpose she is used in, which is the Iron Devourer that does physical damage. Not only that, if you use her in Adventure, personally I have used her in Adventure, and she's pretty niche, especially when comboed with Pascal, because she's able to reduce the backline magic allies cooldown. So if you have a very strong backline magic ally such as Rin or Yonhee or even Pascal, Lucy can actually help to reduce the cooldown of that unit and allow you to use their skills much more frequently, achieving the result you want. She's also used in various PvE content, and in terms of PvP, I recall a time where she was suggested to be used because there were a lot of debuffs happening, and I think she's one of those rare units that can remove 3 debuffs with just one skill, and it's automated by the AI because debuff removal is one of the priority skills. Then we have Victoria. She is the paralysis immunity provider, still used up to this date, 4 months already, and she also is a buffer for the magic team. She basically applies magic vulnerability on the enemy, which lets your magic damage dealers do a lot more damage, and she's also able to boost the magic team's magic attack with her active skill. And with these 2 skills combined, if you use them accurately in the Iron Devourer raid, you can actually achieve a very fast clear if your other units and gears are correct. So not just that, because she is an overall buffer, she can be used in Adventure very early on if you do need a magic buffer, and she's also used in the Gold Dungeon with Pascal. Also in the current season of Tower of Trials, where paralysis is a seasonal debuff applied onto your team, you can actually use Victoria to prevent that paralysis from happening as well. Next up we have Chloe. She is the shock immunity provider, and she also has a very unique ability to prevent healing on the enemy, so the enemy cannot recover any HP while she applies this debuff on them, and it does last for 4 turns. So that is why she is very good in the power-up dungeon against the water element, and she is also good in Castle Rush, where because of her shock immunity, she is the direct counter to Eileen in the Tuesday Castle Rush. And also, depending on the seasonal buff of Tower of Trials, she could be used there as well. In terms of PvP, she actually was part of a meta, I think in the first 3 weeks of the game, because everyone was running Eileen. So she was the immediate counter to that, and you would see many people who run offensive comps with Teo. They would also pair with a Chloe on the team, which was quite interesting because it's really just there to counter Eileen's, but everyone was running Eileen with Teo during that period, so I guess it was a very viable unit to be used. Next up we have Leo. Leo is the only death immunity provider in the game, unfortunately. Okay, as much as I would love another unit to be the death immunity provider, but here we have Leo. But that said, because he is the only unit that gives death immunity, he is very widely used because there are many heroes especially in the end game PvE content that have death on their skills, and you may meet a lot of Chris's along the way in your tower, okay, and Leo is the only counter to that because you definitely don't want to get death. Otherwise there's no way you can cleanse it unless you bring a cleanser, but the chances of you having a cleanser is also really rare, so death is honestly the best way to get around that. And because in Adventure you may face certain units like Nox and Chris, so there you go again, Leo will come in very handy. Even in Power Up Dungeon, you have the Dark Element Dungeon that casts Death, so Leo is a definite must use in that particular dungeon. Then we have Feng Yan. He is actually a DPS and sub DPS unit. DPS for very early game. He actually has two 3-man AoE skills, which makes him a very good unit for Castle Rush, and yes, he has amazing animation. And he also provides freeze immunity, which gives him a possible support role, and still he is being used up till this date, and very good for farming, especially for the earlier stages, because towards the later stages you have 5 enemies and that's where he starts to fall off. But in the earlier stages of farming, where your adventure stages only have 3 heroes each, you can use Feng as well, and he's pretty strong. In Castle Rush, he acts as a sub DPS and he can dish out very good damage even on the front line. And he also does a defense reduction for you if you use him as a support. So yeah, he actually doubles up as many roles, and I think he's one of the better units to invest in early game as well. So next up we have Sera. So although she is the magic counterpart to Feng, but because she doesn't have very support related skills, she is purely a DPS, she doesn't really get much time to shine, because in terms of DPS, why would you want to build Sera when you can actually build like someone like Feng? Because both of them have 3-man AoE skills, and Feng has much more going on in terms of his support role and his skills and his debuff capabilities as well. So in terms of Sera, she is only used for Castle Rush. Okay, you may want to use her for farming. I guess that is fine as well, because I mean, if you are looking at just 3-man AoE skills, both of them kind of satisfy that requirement. But for Castle Rush, it is good for the bosses that resist physical attack, okay, which is the Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday ones, and that's basically it, because there's no other place you can use her. So actually, she is one of the ones that I would say is pretty contentious if you want to build her. To be honest, I have never built her, but that said, I was pretty lucky with my pulls and I got Yuri really early, so I could use Yuri for farming, I could use Yuri for Castle Rush. So if you don't have Yuri for a very long time, you can actually build Sera. She will really also do good damage for Castle Rush, but she will solely be your Castle Rush magic DPS, okay? Her buff duration reduction skill does come in handy in certain of the Castle Rush stages. Next up we have Jin. He is a silence immunity provider alongside Cleo, but if you want to choose Jin and Cleo, I mean, Jin is probably the better option because he does have 3-man AoE skills as well, and so he can be used against Dylan's Castle Rush. Beyond Dylan's Castle Rush, he is sometimes also appearing in Tower of Trials, where the enemy does have certain silence skills, okay, then he will come in handy there, but honestly beyond that, I don't see much use for him. But he is still a must build because you want him to survive in your Castle Rush for as long as he can. Next up we have Lee. So Lee, I mean, if you just base on the score right now, as you see on the screen, you would think that he is a better option to pick compared to Jin, to build compared to Jin, right? I mean, honestly, Lee is probably used more than Jin because Lee has a very powerful ability to have a taunt and also a physical immunity, physical damage immunity. So he actually comes in very clutch in certain of the adventure stages where the enemies do really big single target damage. I remember that very clearly because they were killing all my units very quickly with just one single hit. And actually Lee was the answer to that. Basically, if you taunt with him and he casts his own physical immunity, he takes no damage and your team takes no damage, and you can proceed to kill them without much difficulty. Not only that, he is also having a HP alteration, so he can actually help your team kill off enemies much easier, single enemy though, and that could come in handy especially in your adventure when they have very high HP amounts. In terms of Infinite Tower and Tower of Trials, he is very commonly used because of certain units that have very strong single target attacks, and Lee just soaks it up. Next up we have Joker. He is actually more useful than you think. I was also surprised seeing Joker being so useful in this game. So Joker is very purely for power up dungeon, the light dungeon especially, because he does have multi-hit skills. He's the only hero in the game with a skill that hits 7 times on one skill. Yeah, so the light element dungeon does have very high amounts of damage nullification, and that's why Joker can get rid of those nullifications very quickly. Not only that, he does provide crit damage boost regardless of ally typing. okay, to the entire team. He also is able to reduce crit rate of the enemy, so you take a bit less damage. He's used in very early castle rush because at 6 star, please remember that at 6 star, okay, only at 6 star, he's able to remove 2 buffs from the enemies. This is very important because some people may use 5 star jokers in the castle rush and they realize that they are not scoring as well, because 4 star and 5 star jokers can only remove 1 buff, but 6 star joker can remove 2 buffs, and all the castle rush bosses, those that actually apply buffs, it usually comes in 2 buffs. Okay, so joker is very useful there early on until you are able to get biscuit, or if you get a Vanessa, a T2 Vanessa early on, then they will replace joker in that particular area. Next up, we have Jane. Again, another very surprising unit because I never expected Jane to be useful. I remember in 7 Nights 1 she was especially useless, especially in the whole clan. So for Jane, she is actually very good in the water element dungeon. I used her very early on. I only got her to 6 star, I didn't even give her dupes. But I would say that having a T2, okay, T2 Jane is actually very useful because at T2, her poison chance on her basic attack increases. And this is very important because the water element dungeon, if you don't have a strong DPS right from the start and you want to rely on status effects to kill the water element boss, then poison is your go-to move, and stacking up the poison can really cripple the boss very quickly. So Jane is the best unit there. But of course, later on in another video, I will show you guys a much more updated team, and Jane is of course no longer used already. Yeah, so this is only for early game if you really need someone, if you really want to go with the poison approach. Okay, actually she's also used in some floors of Tower of Trials where the boss is very susceptible to poison. Jane can be used there as well, but it's a very niche role. Next up, we have Noho. Noho is still a unit that's being used right now, but unfortunately for me, I cannot enjoy her usability and her usefulness because I haven't made it that far in my Adventure Nightmare. But I've seen many players, especially ones that go very far in until, you know, Nightmare 11 or so on, they do use Noho because she has this amazing ability to alter the HP of 2 enemies down to 25%. And at 25%, you should be able to kill them much easier. So Noho is there for that purpose. And since she's only a rare unit, she's actually pretty decent and easy to build. With all that taken into account, I would say because you are not gonna be in Adventure Nightmare, especially in the later stages, that fast, you don't have to rush to build her. So she is actually on the later end of the wish list, later end of the priority list, I would say. You at the beginning, you definitely have better, more important heroes to build, and that's definitely not Noho, but keep her in mind, okay, because every dupe of Noho is going to come in useful. My personal mistake was I sacrificed many dupes because I thought she was useless, but clearly not, and it took me a while, but yeah, then she is finally maxed out, but I haven't been able to, you know, enjoy that usefulness. Next up will be Soy. I actually don't really use Soy, but she kind of has a dual purpose in the early game, whereby she's a bleed specialist. So she's great in your dark element dungeon, which is very susceptible to bleed. She's also one of the only units in the game that has this thing called quintuple target resistance. Basically, in basic English, it just means resistance to 5-man AoEs, okay? So she reduces the damage from 5-man AoEs, making her quite a good unit to have in the early game, like really early game. Okay, she also has buff removals, but similar to Joker, you need her at 6 star, not 5 star, not 4 star. So she can be used in Castle Rush as well for buff removal purposes if your Joker is not built yet. And that's basically it for Soy, really, that's basically it. So she's not really high on the priority list. The next unit and last niche unit I want to talk about will be Hellenia. Hellenia is actually a PvP unit. She's actually been used for a few metas, a few weeks, because the magic meta was really powerful, and those top players running tank comps actually did use Hellenia's capabilities, because Hellenia is I would say similar to Lee. She is basically the magic version of Lee. She will taunt okay, and have magic damage immunity. That means she cannot be damaged by single target magic attacks. But if you think about it, in PvP, many of the units in the game deal AoE damage. So that is why some of the players pair her with Rudy, because Rudy has a link and that will reduce AoE damage. So once you have all these layers of tankiness built up, Hellenia actually comes in really useful, because all your single target attacks, usually in the form of basic attacks, will all be soaked in by her, and your other allies won't take much damage. Not only that, she's also able to heal 2 allies with the lowest HP. That means for the magic for the tank team, this is also a third healer apart from Alice and Lina. Okay, so that is why they do use her, and she also cleanses debuffs with her skill. So overall, very strong PvP unit, but only for tank teams and only if you are, facing a magic meta, which I'm not sure how the global meta will go at launch. So the last 3 heroes I would like to talk about are Jupy, Snipper, and Yuri. So as you know, for your raid units, your raid DPSs, Shane, Espada, and Pascal, they actually have a cheaper budget version who are Jupy, Snipper, and Yuri. So Jupy is the one that is second to Shane in the Destroyer Gaze. She also has poison, making her possible for your water element dungeon, like I mentioned. But beyond that, if you do manage to get Shane, Jupy is completely unnecessary. Okay, similar to Snipper, he actually functions the same way as Espada, whereby if the enemies die, he gets a buff and he will convert the buff into big damage. So same as Espada, if you don't have Espada, Snipper will probably be a unit that you want to use, or some people also use Shane in the Ox King, so that is also possible. You don't really need to build Snipper unless you want to use Snipper in the power up dungeon that is more susceptible to burn, because he does have burn as well. Then for Yuri, she is also a burn unit. Okay, so she does see some use in the power up dungeon as well, if for whatever reason you stop using her in raids. Okay, she is actually the budget Pascal and used in Iron Devourer for her very strong single target magic skills. So this is a summary tier list of the rare units. So SS would mean should use and build, S would mean used in important content, A decent usage, B very niche use, C falls off in the near future, and F will never be used. I've mainly covered those in the SS rank, S rank, A rank I didn't cover Karon, but she's a healer and she does revive, also very niche use. B, I have not touched on Mei and Cleo because I really don't think they will be needed at all, but if they are being used, it's really for a certain very tiny purpose. And in the C, I have not talked about Ray, Lania, or Hellenia. Ray is actually a farmer and I think she will be given free, okay, for newer players. And then we have Lania and Hellenia, they are freeze specialists. So if you do want to use them in your fire element dungeon, you can, but honestly, I've never ever used the freeze technique to get through the fire element dungeon because your single target damage dealers can actually deal with him very easily. And finally, the F tier, I really don't have to talk about them, they are not used at all. And you can even use them as fodder, okay, if you want, in the very early game. So in terms of wishlist, your wishlist should definitely comprise of Eva and Yuri right from the start, and hopefully you do get all your raid units. I would say once you have Eva and Yuri, go get your raid units and then cycle back to Eva and Yuri again to get them to T6. All these units need to be upgraded to T6 as soon as you can, because at T6 another of their skill or passive gets upgraded. Okay, so these are very important, and if you want to start your raids on early, you perhaps also will want to get a Yuri and Snipper copy, at least just for the beginning, to actually do your raids. Otherwise, you can't really do much for raids, okay? And then for Jane, if you are looking to use her in power-up dungeon, you perhaps want to consider getting her a T to T2, that means pulling 3 copies and that's about it. Then you can move on to your other immunity units, getting one of each so that you actually have something you can use in terms of for Castle Rush, if Castle Rush gets unlocked for your guild. And then finally in stage 4, these are really, I would say, late game or later game units to build, to actually look into going for T6 and more. So as long as your raid units are completely T6'd, And if you're thinking of pushing and you realize that their bulk is still not there and you want to go for T12, go ahead. Okay, the rest of the units, I would say just let them come to you, because honestly, rare units, they come very easily. You won't really feel difficulty in getting copies of them, and I have to specially mention that you can also craft them every week, okay, using 3-star fodder. So that's also another avenue where you can get all your units very quickly to higher transcendence levels to do better in all their respective fields. Okay, so that's all I have for this video for rare units. I hope you have a better idea of who to build and who to use in the upcoming release. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thank you so much and see you!